So this conversation is very near and dear to me because I get a lot of questions from patients around postpartum binding, belly wraps, waist trainers, and it's really important to start to take note that there are significant differences between all of those and more. There's a lot out in the market. We see it all the time. There's so much pressure to bounce back, to look a certain way, to suddenly come out of the hospital looking as if you were never pregnant in the first place. And that's wildly unrealistic. There are ways that we can support the spine gently and the organs gently in those first few weeks postpartum, but it's important to note the difference between gentle support and restriction. And why that's so important goes far beyond postpartum and even into fashion, like high-waisted, really tight cinch belts and really tight jeans and things that constantly are putting pressure on your midline throughout the day. And the reason that it's so important, the reason that we're talking about it is because that pressure has to go somewhere. And guess where it goes? So let's imagine that this lovely beach ball is your core canister. You've got your diaphragm up here, you've got your pelvic floor down here, you've got your abdomen, all of your organs, everything lives in the middle, and it goes with you throughout your life. It's part of your daily function. We don't really pay a lot of attention to it. It's just kind of there and we know it exists, and that's kind of the extent of it. When we start to put repeat constricted pressure around the midsection, around the belly, around the waistline, that has an impact because the pressure then has to become displaced. So we know that this ball is inflated, which means that there is a certain amount of pressure within it. Once we start to restrict or put pressure on that pressure, the distribution just happens in a different place. So if I just squeeze gently on this beach ball, not a lot's going to happen, right? It is redistributing pressure, but gentle compression over time does not necessarily have the same effect as repeat restriction and extreme pressure. So that comes with waist trainers, binders, that tight cinched cute high-waisted belt that has a great look in a dress, or if you're like cinching, we don't have to talk about fashion, you get the point I'm trying to make. The more cinched, tightened, restricted pressure you put on your waistline, the more your pelvic floor is going to experience it, and here's why. As we start to deepen that pressure, as we start to restrict and restrict and restrict, what's going to happen? If I were to squeeze this beach ball as tight as I possibly could, where would it pop? Where would it break? Would it break around the midsection where my hands are, or would it break at the top or at the bottom? So this is your pelvic floor. So the more pressure you put over time on your waistline, the more it distributes and redistributes and restricts your diaphragm, which restricts your ability to be able to breathe functionally and supportively. And that pressure over time puts expansion, forced expansion on your pelvic floor, which means you're disengaged from the connection, from that muscle breath connectivity, and you're putting more pressure onto a part of the body that relies on the ebb and flow of contraction and extension. The more pressure you have distributed on your pelvic floor, the less you are able to functionally move it and use it for breath work and supported movement and core support and organ support, bladder support, rectal support. All those things are really, really important. So the more you can be aware of how you are managing that intra-abdominal pressure over time, the more you're going to start to understand what that means for your pelvic floor health. So when you're in CrossFit and you're wearing a weight belt because you're going to be lifting really heavy, just remember that weight belt is there to support your spine, but it's not doing your pelvic floor any favors. That doesn't mean that you absolutely never can wear anything on your waist again, but it's important to start to understand so that you can prioritize. Is today a day where I'm going to be maxing out my reps at 90 to 100%? And if that's the case, you may want to wear a weight belt, but please be aware of what that's doing to your pelvic floor so that you know that you can take preventative measures before and after to keep encouraging that pelvic floor functionality. And the more that you're aware of that in the clothes that you wear, I mean, truly, I love a pair of high-waisted jeans. Almost all of my leggings are high-waisted. I'm short. They look better for my figure, and they're cute, right? And they're still in right now. But what that means over time is the more restriction that you have on your waistline over time, the less connected you are to your pelvic floor. So just having that awareness and always being ready to do those breathing exercises before and after. If you're wearing a belt, if you're wearing tight pants, if you're wearing, I don't even want to say a binder because I don't want to encourage you to do that. But if you're wearing anything that puts pressure on your midsection, use your breath work, use your knowledge, use the tools that you have so that your body does get an example, before and after that pressure to keep you safe and functioning healthily so that we don't have to deal with further dysfunction in the pelvic floor. Because we're all going to have it at one time or another. The more we can mitigate it over time, the happier we're going to be.